Okay, so this week we are talking about death and dying and um, what we've what messages we've received from media and from family and what we know about bereavement and things like that. So I'll start by saying this. Before this year, I had never really had experience with anyone dying in my family. I only lost my great grandmother once when I was 14, and she was already older and got sick, and so it was her time, and it wasn't tragic or anything. That was pretty much it. My family had been very fortunate to not experience any loss up to this point. So I had never really received any messages from my family about bereavement or, how to cope with loss or things like that. Um, I will say this. This year I lost my dad 9 months ago. And it was very sudden. He actually died from COVID. He was only 44 years old, would have been 45 this November. And that was very dramatic and tragic and very, very unexpected. And not at all what I thought my first experience with loss would be, let alone the person who I lost. Um, Things that I would see communicated through me through the media. When I thought about loss and bereavement, I always thought it would be I would lose one of my grandparents or parents, like way down the road. They would get really sick and get some kind of chronic illness, like we talked about, and I would be prepared for it, and I would get time to grieve with them about whatever was going on. That's what I would usually see portrayed in TV shows or the media. And then they would pass, and I would have come to terms with it by then because we would have walked through this whole thing together, and it would have been fine. I would have grieved for a couple months, and then after that, would have come to terms with the fact that it was just their time and they were sick, so they're not suffering anymore and stuff like that. However, that has not been the case at all. I never thought I would lose a parent so young, let alone to a virus or to a pandemic, I guess. So that's been very hard to cope with. So reality versus what I thought has been completely different. I always thought that when I would grieve or have sorrow or loss, that I would be able to handle it so well, and I would be prepared for it, and it would be fine. And it would be when my grandma was really, really old, so I knew like her time had come, or when my parents were really, really, really old, and I knew their time had come, so it would have been easier to handle. But having to deal with the loss so sudden and so tragic has been very hard to cope with, especially because I have three younger brothers. They're 12, 11, and 10. And so that just makes it so much harder to know that they're not going to have their dad there for all those milestone moments as they grow up. And even me, he's going to miss out on some things. And it's hard to deal with. So, yeah, thank y'all. See y'all next week.